All right, welcome back to Manifest in a Participatory Universe. And today, it's Chapter 3. And in Chapter 3, we're going to talk about the universe and the limit of everything. So, that's an interesting concept, right? Everything and a limit to everything. And this is where we learn how infinite we are, okay? So we're going to start with kind of backtracking a little bit into the vibration of subatomic energies so that we can kind of understand uh, the waves and the frequency thing again, because it really is a foundational concept to build on. Um, the universe itself is mostly nothing, right? With something vibrating at a really high frequency, and it creates the illusion of solidity. It creates the illusion of solidity through gas, through solids, through liquids, through plasma. These are all different forms of matter, right? And what's happening is these things are vibrating so quickly that it's like a bike wheel spinning so fast the spokes look solid. We can imagine uh, that maybe these small things, as they're vibrating really fast, if you held them up to your ear, they would make a really high pitch, kind of like my Wi-Fi does. It just at the back of perception, it's making a pitch. And because the frequency is like this wave pattern, the oscillation between the crest and the trough, the high point and the low point in the wave, it creates these vibrations. And if we were to look at the vibrations and kind of give it a field, give it a sense of what's happening, it might look something like this, right? Where it pulses and it gives an idea, and it pulses and it gives off an idea, and that's whatever this energy is. It's this frequency that it's a point that just keeps vibrating really quickly. And if we're imagining that world, we're imagining these different points in space, these points of frequency, all of this in space, this nothingness, these vibrations, creating fields based on the frequency and the size and the power, and all of these frequencies interact and influence each other. And if it's, like I said, if we're imagining that we're holding it up to our ear, this one little point, and it's vibrating super fast, it's giving off a high frequency, all of these together, we can kind of imagine that would be the song of the universe, okay? All the frequencies at once, all of the past, all of the present, all of the future. In the last video, we said time is an illusion. Time is where we are now. We are perceiving where we are now. If we were at a different point with the light hitting and the photons hitting us, we might perceive a completely different time based on what's around us. So when we're imagining everything at once, we're imagining all these vibrating frequencies, we're imagining the song of the universe. It's everything simultaneously, a universal pitch. And we're not talking, one or two like we were before. We're talking, if this cube is the entire universe, it's all of the frequencies playing at once, every single one of them. And if I'm going to blow your brain, I'm going to do it right now, because I want you to imagine positive numbers, imaginary numbers, negative numbers. It's everything, right? Infinity. Every number that is, was, or ever can be. Trillions and trillions of numbers in front of and behind a decimal point. And all of them kind of just blasting out all at once. I bet you're kind of happy that we only perceive about 4% of the universe, right? Like 4%. Think about that. Not even 4%. That's with all our tools and our modern technologies, 4%. That's too much. Too much for our little brains to actually comprehend. Our senses filter our reality so that the physical brains receive signals in a prioritized way. Maybe this staves overwhelm. Maybe it limits the amount of information being processed to describe the outside world. And by doing that, the brain is more efficient, right? An efficient brain is one that focuses on survival. An efficient brain understands the cycles that have been going on and preserves energy inside of it. Because if we think too hard, or we think too much, or we perceive too much, the brain burns a lot of energy. We need calories. We have to eat more. So if we focus on survival, we cut away all that stuff. We're being an efficient brain, an efficient body. And the thing is that a brain that always focuses on survival becomes hardwired for survival over time. Neurons that fire together end up wiring together. So when all you do is focus on survival, you become hardwired for survival over time. And that actually contributes to more brain overwhelm because it's trying to take in more information constantly. The brain needs to release focus anxiety occasionally. And one way is limiting access to additional frequencies in perception. Literally cutting out 96 or 97% of the universe. We do not perceive it. It doesn't help us formulate a concept of the world around us, and it doesn't help us move forward. So out of the concept of infinity, we're nowhere near even a piece of that. We can put numbers on that are still too large for us to comprehend. And infinity, every frequency ever, every idea ever has a frequency. Every person ever has a frequency made up of billions and trillions of other smaller frequencies, right? Everything, when we're thinking this way, stacks up to the next big thing. And infinity is not just a number. It's every alphabet in the number and every abstract number. It's numbers that are upside down and left to right and up, down to up. Okay? It's everything. And all of that stuff has one master frequency. It's the frequency of the universe. And all of the pieces within it, one of those is you. One frequency that's the sum of all the frequencies inside of you is you. And it's this little part when we kind of zoom in, this is you. And the more that we zoom in, the more we see that you are built of all of these complex interchanging atoms and subatomic particles and energies and frequencies. And it just depends on the scale that we're looking at it. We can zoom out, we can zoom in. So I'm going to take about just a minute here to talk about ideas. Now, I don't really mind what God you worship. Whether you follow a Christian God, Jewish God, Hindu God, atheist God, now figure that one out. Universal God, Maya the Mother, or your inner self, your soul. At some point, many people find something in which to place faith. They feel solace that something or someone is looking out for them. In this fashion, I'm going to speak about the inner you. Now, you're free to interpret that as the God spirit within you, your non-physical entity in charge, maybe your soul. You're welcome to think of that as the external God wishing you to do good, or that perception of a Buddhist nirvana that your inner self is leading you towards, okay? Or simply maybe as just a deep force of will. All of them count. Because at some point we have to ask why we are here. And there seems to be enough credence to the idea that we are only part of what we can be. That if we're looking at frequencies, even the physical part of us doesn't encapsulate what energetically science and registered, magnetic fields around us, we can't even perceive all of us that is us. Part of the greater whole to which we belong. So I don't mind if you think you're a fallen angel or a recovering Buddhist monk in your most current incarnation. Understand that I'm talking about forces of nature at the moment, of which there seems to be much we don't know and cannot grasp as of yet. So what if, in this universe, one of those infinite frequencies is the frequency of you? You are in the space experiencing it. In all the possibilities in the universe that could be you, this one is conjoined in a universe of light, which creates a space where our conscious energy experiences a physical reality. And it does that through this moment-to-moment perception and reevaluation of everything around you. But that doesn't make that you. A bond of energies vibrating in a harmonious chord, that's you. Attracting and repulsing each other, all of that energy within you, manifesting in an attraction of atoms into systems, a universe of experiences brought into being with light. So you step into this physical world as something more. Why not? Because light shows us the world and gives time perception. Outside of the perception of time, everything could be happening simultaneously. But we would not know because we're stuck in this perception moment after moment after moment of us reading the settings and reading the signals coming into our consciousness around us. All of these different vibrations, all of these different energies resonating with frequencies. Now, before humans, we think there was the universe. And maybe before humans, the other energies that were you were the energies that were the greater humanity, or the energies that became the earth were locked in other forms. Maybe they were elementary particles and rocks and gas. Who wants to hang around for 6 trillion years as a molecule of gas, right? Now, if you were a vibrating frequency and it carried all of the information of you and all of the thought and all of the knowledge that you would obtain, what would you do with that? Well, I kind of think I'd go to the beach. I'd enjoy myself, right? If perception of time is based on the reception of light, and everything, including the entire spectrum of light and all of us, is frequency, and we perceive a limited amount of total reality, especially in all of the frequencies and all of everything, then maybe the fact that we do perceive this existence, I am here, I think, therefore I am, it's a clue that we are more than we can actually access. You know, as I keep trying to make this idea of help you understand frequencies and sound and the concepts of that, maybe the universe sounds, this universe in particular, this one of physicality that we are living through, that we are experiencing based in light, based in time, the perception and the movement of light across this universe, maybe it sounds different to something that's pure energy. Maybe this whole universe is like a rock opera or a kick-butt concert. You know, that's what would draw us in, right? Something we can experience, something we can we don't quite understand, because as energy, we can't get into all of that stuff. Maybe somebody that is just a frequency, eternally moving, if we're looking at that line, the vibration, the wave, it goes to the left, to the right infinitely. Maybe a piece of that gets tied in here. Maybe the opera sounds of a plant cell is very different from the concerto of a human cell. I don't really know, but that's the idea here is when we go deeper and we're looking at the atoms and the foundational structures, maybe there is a shift and a difference in some of that. And maybe as that builds up into you, the you that you know you are, maybe you continue on beyond that, you just can't perceive it yet. And then here's the question. If the inner you is part of the eternal you, that energy frequency, and the limited you on the outside is the physical flesh, what if you could do something about that? Like actually appreciate that you're here for some sort of reason, whatever that reason is, that your purpose is yours. But what if you actually believed that as an eternal being, an eternal vibration, a frequency in this, that you could do something about the world that you're in? Why not? Right? A participatory universe is one where you are part of it, experiencing it, and your entire existence also relies on doing things, on meeting people, on moving around, on interfacing. You have to eat, you have to breathe, you have to poop, You have to do things as part of being in this existence. You have to be an active participant. Which kind of leads to the next thought. What if there, is a finite amount of energy in this infinite universe? How would that work? And this is the reason that we can't really perceive some of these things beyond, because we have access to a finite amount of energy in the infinite universe. So if energy and matter are synonymous, right? Energy and matter change forms back and forth, but they're synonymous. And maybe they change forms back and forth because there's a finite amount of it in this universe. In fractal form, the universe recycles creation and destruction and creation again, right? It grows, it expands, it shifts, it changes different form at different levels. From the Big Bang to the very end, maybe this universe exists in some sort of waveform, in a frequency that is extended, and we are just tiny fractions of building that larger frequency. Why would the universe not recycle itself? Of course, it'd be on a time scale that's really unthinkable for us. But maybe, when we're in the upper wave crest, and then when it goes to the lower wave crest, the trough, maybe there's another side to the universal wave that operates with very different rules. So we're going to think about some big ideas. We're going to talk about this, and hopefully I break it down enough that you get it from this different perspective, okay? So we're going to go ahead and look at the universe again, our universal cube. And we're going to go ahead and say that this circle represents our universe, everything in our universe. And when we zoom in on that circle, sure, we've got the intersecting frequencies of light and time and gravity and energy and people and life and all of the different things. And as we see that frequency extends beyond the area of where they cross, beyond the point of intersection, but it kind of harmonizes into, this is our universal frequency, our experiential frequency. So the universal energy that we can perceive in this circle that is ours, that is our universe, is infinite. Okay? The universal energy in the cube is infinite, but it's a different infinite. It's a bigger infinite. The energy in the circle is the same as the energy in the cube, but it's distinct because we're going to go ahead and kind of portion it off. That's where these intersecting energies all come together. But really, it's the same energy as everything. And this is a big concept, that you can have a small thing, a big thing. If we go back to chapter 1 and we remember that we can represent this with an egg, we can represent this with a circle, we can represent this with a dragon, okay? The shape doesn't matter. Energy and all of infinite energy is everything. But we're just going to take a portion of infinite energy, which is still infinite because it all crosses in that space. It's just different than the other infinite energy. And imagine that the intersecting vibrations in there, it has the center where things cross, and then it's got a sort of fuzzy limit, okay? This fuzzy limit is the area outside the bounds of the vibrational frequency core. Everything within that area vibrates and makes up our reality. But we've got sort of a fuzzy limit to the size of our universe, right? If we're looking at this, we have infinite. It's big and infinite, but it's only infinite in terms of that circle. And beyond that, there's this fuzzy region which may or may not be. It's just sort of how we describe atoms, right? They're fuzzy areas where things are moving really fast. And when we look at inside of atoms, the protons and the neutrons and the electrons, well, there's areas and it's kind of fuzzy and it looks like this, but we are pretty sure it's not going to be too far outside of that circle. This is the same idea. Most of what we do is inside the two biggest areas. Most of all of our universe is inside that, but there's a small area that goes outside that. It's a fuzzy limit when we look at the energy we can access. And really, we're kind of like on a momentary universal fluctuation on a much, 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 much larger frequency, okay? Now within that, the energy that we can actually use, it sort of recycles, right? Matter and energy, you and I are things that came out of the center of the sun. Atoms and elements like iron they don't exist until the sun expels and explodes. It requires the stuff from cosmic events to be able to create us. All of the pieces inside of us and around on this planet are from events on a cosmic scale that you can barely fathom. And the way that it works is that all these pieces just keep recycling and recycling. All the vibrations, all the core elements keep recycling and recycling in this universe as it goes along its frequency scale. So I want you to take a minute and kind of hold that in your hand, that all of these elements keep recycling, and all of the frequencies, on the really tiny scale in our universe keep recycling, and all the atoms and all of the molecules, they combine in different ways and break apart and shift and grow. Stars collide together and suck each other's energy, and black holes suck everything into them. Okay? That is the physical experience that is here, that we can kind of get an idea about and measure. Now imagine you're at a public aquarium. You see a wall of round porthole windows connected to a very, very large fish tank. It's like the size of your house, right? And you sit in the rounded porthole window. And most of your body is outside of the experience. But when you're looking in, you can see the clownfish, the sharks, a giant stingray swimming around the back. But you can't taste the water or feel the chill. It's limiting. And from that, we get an idea of what life underwater is for these creatures, but we miss the real experience. And I just kind of wonder, is that what it's like for our inner energy, that frequency that is us? We are that, but we are so much more than that. Maybe that's the fleshy experience for someone who is an energy being. It's kind of limiting, right? But we have to consider that if everything that makes us up is frequency and energy, then at some point that energy is going out beyond us, and it goes out beyond the points that we can even perceive, out into infinity. And if we are experiencing it now, and we are thinking and we are hearing, I am now, then there is a part of frequency in me that is certainly owning this flesh and owning this physicality, but it is not all of me. It certainly does not know everything about what I'm doing. It certainly doesn't influence who I am. But what I think it is an instruction manual to build the receiver, right? Our senses are all receivers. Our senses tell us how to interpret the world around us. And energy and matter don't retain memory. They're vibrations, they're frequencies. Now, what's interesting is frequencies hold information. Frequencies can give information and we can measure frequencies and know what's being carried along. Radio is a frequency. Wi-Fi is frequencies. So we know that we can carry information on it, but frequencies don't retain memory. So why do I think that frequency is an instruction manual of sorts to build a receiver? Well, there's fractal hints, right? We can look around and see plants that start to evolve the same way. There are constants in our world that seem to move along repeating patterns. And Arthur C. Clarke is actually famous for writing, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So I think mathematics are magic, and I think that these frequencies are magic, and I think that these frequencies are instructions. And one of these is actually a fairly famous fractal instruction that is the Mandelbrot set. So, and I'm going to be getting into more of this later, but I want you to have exposure to it now, so you can kind of understand how we're going to get deeper into the brain and understand why z equals z squared plus c. If it's truly a frequency that helps build the receivers in your brain and receive the frequency of you into who you are, then it's a frequency that we can also use to reprogram your brain for more advantageous life, right? Because again, frequencies carry information but not memory. That's why we need the brains, our limbic brain, so that we know how to react and we can kind of keep a basic set of rules about our world, things that we understand and ways that we need to behave. The neocortex, so that we understand what things are in context to other things and start to actually combine them for new things. The rules of this universe and its limits on matter mean pieces get reused. As long as there's no perception of time, we have access to all the knowledge of the universe. The me that is a frequency that is inside of me, that drives me, that is I am, has access to everything in the universe. But it's hard to get that into my brain. And the physicality of the brain, it means that the vibrations of any matter that it was before, the vibrations of oxygen, the vibrations of iron, the vibrations of carbon, these are pieces and vibrations, and they can come together, but they don't have a memory of how things work, and they don't have access to that knowledge. Once bound by a physical existence, we kind of also limit the ability to receive all of the universal information, the frequency of I am. We kind of limit the ability to receive that information because we lock ourselves in this little form, kind of like sitting in that window of the aquarium. We can't experience all of it. We can't be everything that we are. We miss pieces. So memory is formed in the physical existence to aid in survival. We begin wiping anything of that basic frequency from our physical self once the body starts processing basic programs. And this is within the womb, actually. We start building basic programs. This is the world we exist in. We start to teach the brain how to behave, how to examine the world. We start understanding some of these things. Coming into this world may carry some of our residual base frequency. And the vibrational operational frequency of the limbic system overwrites that in time with experiences and beliefs, because it's trying to understand how to behave and keep us safe in this experience of this life. Now, we don't truly know about the level of consciousness in creatures beyond ourselves. I'm not even sure if we can justifiably say that there's a level of consciousness between me and another person, between you and your neighbor, because we don't really judge. What is consciousness? How do we judge that? And the curse of this universe is that recycling energy causes forgetfulness, honestly. When we come in, we get forgetful. But the pieces of this universe, regardless of the frequency, were once one piece before the Big Bang. And energetically, everything is still connected. They are still suggestible. Everything on an energy frequency that builds up the universe that you are in, that is one giant frequency, of which you are one frequency, and the things that you want are one frequency, and the pieces of your life are one frequency, and everything all together are a frequency. Okay? And if that's true, then we're all still connected in some way. And if we're all still connected in some way, and there's a lot of you, the energy that is you, the frequency that is you, that is not locked in this physical being, that is standing outside a porthole somewhere and watching and observing and trying to influence as much as possible, maybe that has some bearing. Because if particles are suggestible, then how do we maintain the openness of suggesting it? Well, for this, we're actually going to look at kids, right? I mean, these are open receivers. They have remarkable memories and creative abilities. We lose much of that as we grow. But creativity is this open aspect of the brain to connect all these ideas. It's not locked to this can be, this can't be. It is wide open. And because it's wide open, kids are able to stay playful. They don't let the limits of anxiety or disbelief stop them. But as the physical body grows, it overwrites easy access to total consciousness. It overwrites the openness of being with beliefs of how we need to behave. So how do we keep that curiosity? How do we keep that playfulness? We have to stay curious. We have to actually open ourselves up to an understanding that we don't understand. We have to open ourselves up to understanding that we don't have a right to tell others, you should do this. Unless, we really feel like they should. They don't live our life. If you tell another adult, how dare you, you need to take out your trash, that's your perception that you live and you are placing on them. If they do not believe that, they don't. And if you don't stay curious, hey, why aren't you taking out your trash? I'm just curious. What's going on with you? Are you okay? How are things in your life? How's your parents? Curiosity allows us to build the bridge, to stay creative, to stay playful with life. And that's sort of the point of it, right? Without staying creative, without staying playful, without staying curious, then we get stuck in our patterns. We get stuck in patterns from childhood, we get stuck in patterns from grade school, we get stuck in patterns from our first job, from our first wives, from our current girlfriends, boyfriends, you name it. Because if you're not curious, you're not questioning. And then, of course, the trick is to never lose it, right? Don't lose the curiosity. Don't lose the playfulness. Don't lose the joy that you experienced with your creativity and your imagination. Because really, we start from a place of cells coming together in a miracle of frequencies and joining and reproduction. And we lose some of that frequency when the brain starts to reprogram with experience and reprogram with behavioral cues and reprogram with understanding of how we need to survive, which eventually, honestly, the brain just gets foggy. Midlife crisis, quarter life crisis, end of life crisis. What are all these crises? Well, it's the brain being foggy. It's us not knowing how to proceed when the brain has been trained into a point that it can't see past it. We only know what we know. We only know what we experience and what the world gives us. When we're challenged with something else, we get foggy. We don't really know. We kind of have to wipe the mind clean. Not brainwash, mind you, but just wipe it clean, as in restore awareness and control of the brain. Because the fog, the losing creativity, the losing the conscious intent, playfulness, curiosity, that's just program after program after program being put into the brain for survival. The brain thinks it's keeping us alive. The brain honestly feels it is doing the best it can at every second, at every nanosecond to keep us alive and well. But if you've lost the curiosity, if you've lost the joy, if you've lost the playfulness, then it might be time to wipe the brain clean and become curious about life again and the experiences that you can choose. So summary thoughts here. We are all frequencies, and we're made up of smaller frequencies inside of us. And all of those frequencies extend into the experiential universe, the universe that we are experiencing. We experience it with all of our senses. But we are more than that because frequencies are infinite in and of themselves. And when we combine all of the frequencies inside of us to make the frequency of us, the frequency of I am moves beyond the frequency of just this physical body out into the ether, out into the everything. There may be a roughly fuzzy limit to the amount of energy in this universe. And that might explain why babies are born and they don't know how to operate in this world. They don't have deep ancestral knowledge locked in their brain that tells them how to behave, how to survive, how to do things, how to navigate and migrate like birds, how to automatically get up and start walking like a horse freshly birthed. Frequencies contain information. They are mathematical formulas. They tell something how to be, like some piece of information. But they don't carry memory. That's why we need brains, right? Distinguishing yesterday from today from tomorrow. That takes memory, that takes an experience to actually have some kind of memory to compare anything against. And, you know, as we do that, we actually close down the curiosity for protection. We close down the playfulness for protection. We close down our emotions for protection. We close down creativity for protection. And children, being more open to new life experiences, they learn and adapt faster because they accept that this is all play. Nothing about it could be real to them, right? Imagination is more real. Imagination is real because in their brains, that equals the same truth as what they go in every single day. And it takes a decade, sometimes longer, for children to kind of lose some of that, to have them forced into the real world where they have to grow up in. So the assignment this week is that I want you to go through your personalized photos and choose several photos to add into the vision movie. Now this is important because you chose images before that are the future that you want, and you started naming them with emotional states and with emotional statements of how you feel about your future and how excited you are about the spouse that you're going to pull into your life. Now I want you to personalize your photos. So I want you to find photos with your face, a face that makes you feel happy, right? Big smiles. I want you to find things that are experiences that you loved with friends, maybe pictures of your partner or your spouse, adventures you've had out in the world, just moments of life that you've felt gracious, things that were glorious, where you felt love and happiness, achievement, humor, truth. Find moments from your life that you want to keep reliving, that the moment you look at it, you have a heart flutter and a smile creeps across your face. This is what we're looking for, and I want you to find as many as you can and bring that into the stack with all the images that you saved from Google and the searching from the last chapters. And that's it for now. I look forward to working through more of this with you next week.